Thanks very much, and thanks for joining us, everybody. So, as Greg said, this is the Long Paddock website, What's New, and it's all free. Now, this is webinar 1 in the series of Getting the Inside Edge in Grazing Land Management. On behalf of our Grazing Land Systems team, past and present, I give you the Long Paddock website. So, firstly, we're going to have a bit of a rundown on a roadmap on what we intend to discuss, and that'll be the old and the new Long Paddock front end, and the rest are the tabs that follow naturally the pages that we'll be going through, which are about us, the Drought and Climate Adaptation Program, known as DCAP, Drought Declaration and some drought evolution sequences, the SOI dashboard, seasonal climate outlooks, the silo climate database, grazing land systems models, Aussie grass maps and data, the FORAGE property reports, climate adaptation programs, and rainfall posters. So a few of you might remember that the old Long Paddock website, what it looked like here. We found that it was dated. We didn't have full sovereignty over to make changes, and after 23 years, we just knew that it needed an update. So thanks to the money made available through the DCAP program and as part of the Queensland Drought Mitigation Centre, we gave it a full upgrade, and that happened in March this year. And this is the front end you'll see now. But not only will you note that there's some new, the old tabs still exist, and what I'll do is show you on the top bar there what position, what page we're actually on. And so you'll see the tabs there that I've highlighted. They are similar to what we had on the old website, but we've had some additions there, and we've also made some more upgrades since March this year, and we're going to discuss those all very briefly. Down below, we will see a carousel that spins around, and those images are buttonized as well, so you can click on those or mouse over them, and they'll give you a brief bit of text on what you'll see, and you can select that. If you let it spin around the whole way, you'll see these other images, and they just click around continuously for you. Up here we have the 30-day SOI and the date, which comes through the day before. You'll see that came through on the 15th, and what the 30-day SOI is, and we'll cover that a little bit later, but the SOI is one of the surveyed most popular reasons that people visit the Long Paddock website, and we'll show you that a bit later. So about us. Well, the Long Paddock website's a Queensland Government initiative that's provided climate and pasture information to the grazing community since 1995. Over 16,000 visits per month, and the site provides access to rainfall and pasture outlooks, decision support tools to support land management decision making, and planning for landholders, education, consultants, extension officers, and policy. Now, under the tabs here, useful resources, you'll find links to the Long Paddock website itself, or outside the Long Paddock that cover climate and grazing management that anybody would be interested in. Publications are articles, books, journal articles that pertain to the Long Paddock or our research, whether we're co-authors or whether they're just good notable papers. Now, these are bits of information that are all sort of put together as compendium that follow this sort of science and research, and you can't sort of find elsewhere in one sort of position. So moving on, I introduced the Drought and Climate Adaptation Program, and without DCAP, a lot of this work would not happen. So Under the DCAP, it's an initiative to improve drought preparedness and resilience for Queensland producers. And the program aims to do this by delivering a range of research, development and extension projects, improve seasonal forecasting, and provide tools and systems that will support producers in their decision making. Now, under current projects and previous projects, you can see what projects have been funded and what they entail. Under the QDMC, the Queensland Drought Mitigation Centre, you can see some aspects of what that initiative plans to do, which is including improving seasonal forecasts for Northern Australia, provide decision support tools for farm managers, and provide advice on climate change projections at regional levels. The Grazing Futures is another major component of DCAP, and it aims to help graziers in Western Queensland build resilience in their business and recovery from drought as quickly as possible. Okay, so if you want to know more about the DCAP related events and workshops, you can get on to follow these links to Future Beef and the Leading Sheep website, or you can sign up for alerts on the DCAP program here. There's going to be some changes on this website, and there'll be some thematic options here where you can get into grazing or cropping or horticulture to find out what sort of activities have been undertaken and what the progress is on those. Okay, so moving along here, we go to drought declarations. Now, once we're on the drought declaration page, you'll immediately see the latest Queensland drought situation. You can also see this view, and I generally go to this archive because you can go back in time. But what essentially the information you get from the latest image is the number of local government areas that are declared, the partially declared number here, the number of IDPs, independently declared properties, and in how many LGAs there are, and of course the total area of Queensland, 58.1% at the moment. Now, in this page, on this page, you're able to go back in time, and that's useful for. I'll show you in a second how we can reconcile that with other rainfall and pasture growth sequences. But this is useful for producers and the drought officers and the local drought committees to see where they're situated with the drought declarations. This information isn't offered anywhere else, so this is the spot to find out what's declared, when it's declared, and when it's been revoked. And you can see that by the maps here, and you can get colour maps or the map Shire IDP listing here as PDFs, or you can go into this tab up here, which will give it to you in a text form, and you can also go back in time for that as well. So we're going to be making some changes to this page as well, and what we'll be trying to do is put some sequences together that will entail the rainfall, and this is just an example from the start of this current drought, say in April 2012. This is the 12-month percentile map compared to history. As we remember, starting to get very dry in the west there. If we look at our Aussie grass pasture growth for that same period there, you can see how it follows pretty much, but there will be sort of some differences there where the pasture growth model has isolated areas of lower or higher growth than the rainfall has shown. Now, if we look at 2 years rainfall into the drought relative to history, and we look at 2 years of growth, and we can see the deficit of growth growing there. But what I want you to draw your attention to is, say, the Burnett in the southeast Queensland here, where the rainfall is for 2 years relative to history is quite on the average line, but pasture growth we're into deficit there. Now, if we look at the the ensuing drought declaration map, they got it right, and that people would have been hurting in that area. So we can't just go off rainfall alone for these things, and that's what the sequences that we'd like to put together to show in the past or the present the lead up of rainfall and pasture growth. So moving along here, the SOI dashboard. Sorry, yes, the SOI, the difference in pressure anomalies from Darwin and Tahiti. We're on the SOI tab up here. And if we look at the table up here, we've got the SOI values for the 28th of September 2018. We've got the SOI value for the last 30 days and for the last 90 days, and the daily contribution. Just to show it, though we don't use the daily contribution. We more look at the 30 of the 90 days here, and we've got the last 3 months contributions in the table next to it here. Now down below here we have that on a time series graph, and we have the 30 and 90 day representation here for a month, and if we hold our cursor over on the graph at any one point here, you'll get the values of the 30 and the 90 day. Down below here, we're able to tick the time sequences off. If you want to click on the daily contribution and click off the 90, it's an interactive graph, so you can have a play with that, and it's quite instructive there. Further down below, we have the actual values, the daily values of the pressures between Tahiti and Darwin, the daily contribution, the 30 and the 90 day values here, and that will continue down the page. And in fact, you can download the data files, and people do, because the SOI, due to government extension since the 1990s, a lot of people follow this, and that's covered by the third survey that a lot of people visit the Long Paddock website simply to get the SOI information, and it's one of the few places, if not the only place in the world that you can get this exact information. Okay, if you go down onto the SOI monthly graphs, we get some slightly different information here, which will show you the SOI phase information. Goes back to 1876, and this is an interactive graph here where you can move the sliders across, and you can see what the SOI phase is at any point in time with the SOI as well, and it'll show what the phase is in a little mouse over box here. Down below, you get the current year, the SOI and the SOI phase, and it's depicted here. And you can see that for the last 12 months, up to the point that we've accessed it here. But you can also take that back to any year you like, back to 1900 here. So we've got a slider, and you can move that. You can move that along there, and it's quite interactive. You can download the image or the PDF, save it, and print it out. Moving along to the seasonal climate outlook. So here's the button that we're on at the moment. Now we can look at the monthly climate statements and the rainfall commentary that we offer in-house, and then we can also go back in time and we can read the previous statements on the monthly climate or the rainfall commentary. The other things that we find on this page are the sea surface temperatures, which are important in the Enzo production, and what we can do from there is again have a slider bar. It's interactive, and we can move back in time here and have a look at how the sea surface temperatures, the warm and the cool water between in the Pacific here, and just acknowledge what sort of seasons we're having and the changes that the sea surface temperatures are having. Likewise, with the SOI phase rainfall probabilities, we can see the current chance of exceeding the median rainfall for the next 3 months based on whatever phase we happen to be in for that particular period of time. Now, up above here, we will have the analog years, so the like type years in the past that have been the same, and we can go back in time and we can dial in whatever phase, whatever month for Queensland or Australia, and those maps will come up. So a lot of people follow this information because it's quite a good and extended extension program that started in the 1990s, and people understand the SOI phase, and we use it in our pasture forecasting as well. So again, that's quite an interactive addition that we've made to the site. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now is how we might add to the that Outlooks page, and we're going to ask you a question. But firstly, I'll go through an option that we improve and add to this Outlook page, and we would add not only the government SOI phase and SOI information, but add in short-term forecasts and weather, and we've got an example of that here, where we get 1 week followed by another week's weather, because we're not just looking at climate, we're interested in weather. So that's an example from the NCEP WX Maps site, and for the rest of them, they're longer term, excuse me, outlooks. So we've retained the same information, but we've just added some extras in here from the Bureau, the QDMC, the USQ monthly statement that gets put out by Roger Stone, Cotton Info Manager, Climate Kelpie with the Kelpie dogs, the WMO that I've highlighted it here, some global centres for producing seasonal forecasts, and I'll just give you an example of the second one here, the IRI, International Research Institute, showing you the probability percentage and the most likely category of rainfall. So this is just giving a number of different options and for people to look at, and without having to go all over the web. They're all on this page. So Greg, I'll ask you to run that poll now, if you could.
Sure, absolutely. So everyone, Grant would just like to ask you a question. So are users okay with more links added to the Seasonal Outlooks page to provide more weather and climate information options? It's either a yes or no. So Grant, I don't know whether you want to expand on what links you're talking about.
Thanks, Greg. Just what we see is what we get there. We don't take anything out. We just add some other links in that people might not know about, so it gives them more options, more things to learn about, and some of them Australian and some of them are overseas. And if we put them in one spot, people don't have to surf all over the place. They're available there for them.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so most people have now put their responses in, so I'll close it off in 3, 2, 1, and I will share it is. And there you have it, 100% say yes.
That's great. I didn't think there would be any issues, but that's heartening to know. Okay, so we'll blast on. We've got that page prepared, and as soon as we get that passed for approval, we'll upgrade. Moving on, so silo climate data. On the silo page, you'll see that we can go into a new system or an old system. So silo, like ourselves, is going up on the cloud, and it's going to have a new web page in itself, and it's going to look like this. And you can request point data or gridded data to run climate models, and this is the website that you'll see. And a number of people that are into research, ecological research, use silo, and in fact, if you want to know what the climate database does, it offers point data in model-ready formats from 1889 to present in rainfall, evaporation, solar radiation, temperature, and vapor pressure. They just happen to be the data that are needed to run models for ecology, including pasture growth. So that's why we use it. Where does it come from? Well, it uses BOM data. It's Australia-wide. It's on a 5K resolution, and we take the point station data and we make it into a grid. So we interpolate it. So essentially, what you get is data from 1889 to yesterday. So whilst it's still used by research, and our system's one of the biggest researchers, it still can be used as for landowners if they want a full sequence of climate data for their property. It's all free, and it can be manipulated from daily data into months, into years. But if you're using any of our Aussie grass data or our forage reports, you're essentially using silo data. It's just done for you. Okay, so let's move along. So in the grazing land systems models, our aim is to combine major aspects of climate, pasture and grazing environment. And this is a schematic of it. And as I mentioned, with the climate data comes in terms of rainfall, evaporation here, radiation and temperature data, but all the other biology and ecology that's added in here goes into our grazing models, and that gives us a better handle on the pasture growth, and it adds more certainty of the growth and what happens than rainfall alone. So let's go in to see how it's actually used here in the Aussie grass maps and data. When you go into the Aussie grass tab here, you'll see we go straight into the rainfall and pasture growth maps, and you'll see the first map you'll see is the chance of exceeding the median growth for the next 3 months. So that's made by you running the pasture model on the antecedent conditions, and we take analog years from the SOI phase and project forward to the next 3 months. But what we can do from this menu here is select Australia or any of the states, and select 1 month up to 3 years for the maps, and across here this will be the years that we want to select our data for and maps, and our outputs are rainfall, either as absolutes or percentiles relative to history. So it's rainfall, pasture growth, curing for fires and quality, a runoff, and all the medians for those as well. So quite a lot of data there, and I'll show you another way from not just clicking on all these, but getting those in a one ready report. So those maps are available in a GIF form, just a map form, and a PDF that can be taken and used in presentations, or you can save them, or GIS files that are used for spatial analyses. So all of that's readily available, going back for rainfall back to 1890, and pasture growth for a number of years as well, and very, very handy to look at different sequences, and we'll be using those as I mentioned in the drought evolution sequences. Still on the same tab of Aussie grass here is another interesting feature in the time series graphs, where we can dial into a state of Australia. It's Australia-wide. We can go into this drop down here, and we can select either shire data or bioregions. There's 400 odd bioregions in Australia, and we can select, say for this one is the Carpentaria Shire, and what we get out of that is a series of graphs on a PDF, which gives you rainfall, temperature, pasture growth, pasture biomass, utilisation and cover of on a monthly and annual basis going back to 1890, and for monthly 1990. Now that's all pre-formatted, and it's very good for research and for departmental people, but for research and universities, local drought committees. It's very interesting, and you can also get the data for that and on a monthly basis and manipulate it into spreadsheets. Okay, moving along, our forage property reports. So this would be our version of the Swiss Army knife, where we've got multiple models and multiple aspects that fit into different reports. So here you are, the user. You go through the Long Paddock website, you get into the forage system, you select a different report, and you can. The reports will be made up of all these different aspects, and it takes whatever it needs from models and data, pre-formats it into a report, through into the forage system, and emails it to you as a PDF. And that might come to you within minutes or hours, depending on the complexity. But a tremendous range of reports, which I'll go through now and show you. So 12 reports, as well as four types of satellite imagery that you can access. And if you go into the drop-down menu here, we select the different reports, and you can select all of them at the one time if they're applicable to your area. We select your property, your place, either by lot on plan, lat and long, using the geolocate button that will take you to the map of where you are. You can put your local town, your road address, property address, if your property name, if it's a substantial property that's been around for quite some time, you can try that, and it'll take you straight into the map, or you can zoom in and just find it. What you'll see is a digital cadastral database, and you can see here all the different lots on plan here. You simply select by pressing on that, it will highlight it, it will add it as one of the lots on plan, as shown here. You can select multiple lots on plan for your aggregation, and then add your email, a label if you wish, hit submit, and that will be winging its way to you very shortly. So that's really simplified the way that you can get reports. Now we're going to be our third and fourth webinar are going to be on the forage reports, but I'm going to give you a very quick update on them now. There's also 4 awareness videos that you get to at the bottom of the screen here. And now we'll quickly go through the forage reports. So firstly, there's the indicative land type report, one of the most highly sought after report, and 1,500 of these reports go out every month in total, but the land type is one of the most popular, and we're currently redoing some of the land types, and they should be released towards Christmas. So there'll be an upgrade, and some of the idiosyncrasies will be sorted out in the land type files. This gives you the number of hectares and the percentage contribution of your land types. The rainfall pasture, 2 types, one are broad rainfall and pasture with the Aussie grass parameters, and the other will be by land type, which gives you some summary stats here: the rainfall, the annual rainfall, the pasture growth across time from 1975 to current, your total standing dry matter, your biomass, and the model ground cover. Moving on, the rainfall and pasture growth outlook report that gives you probabilities above the normal of rainfall and pasture growth once we run the pasture model and run it ahead with the SOI phase system. So they can look different there because the pasture growth model takes into consideration the current situation. The ground cover report, which shows you the current 3-month ground cover image for your lot on plan here, but on the second page it will also give you the minimum ground cover of your property back to 1987, and show the ranges of that ground cover. The regional comparison ground cover report for your lot on plan will give you the 25k radius for your property, and relate it by land type for your property, but also for the neighbouring land types within that 25k k radius. The drought assessment report, as I mentioned before, are the Aussie grass maps that you can get in one hit. So this report gives you 26 different maps in one PDF of temperature, rainfall, pasture growth, biomass, grass fire risk, and ground cover at different points in time on your shire sort of level and your neighbouring shires, as well as an Australia-wide snapshot. So very useful for the drought officers and the local government, the drought committees, to find out what situation they're in, and it can also be used for buying and selling properties and agistment. So gives you a broad view of the areas and surrounds. The regional climate projections give you the historical data for your regional area in terms of rainfall, evaporation, temperature, and vapor pressure, so the humidity. Historical, but the projections for 2030, 2050, 2070, also on a monthly basis here. So really useful information, all collated in one report for you. The foliage projected cover gives you your woody density across your lot on plan, but also in ranges, but also adds in the land types. So very useful information there that's just available in that report for planning. The erodibility report available for the Burdekin and Fitzroy only, giving you the vulnerability of your soils for your property in a number of different snapshots, and giving you an overall soil erodibility ranking. Onto some of our latest reports, the crop frequency and type report, which has been upgraded recently, and we'll be running through this one in the fourth webinar to relate the new things, which is an upgrade of crop type, relating cereals, pulses, and cotton, not only frequency, but in summer and winter cropping as well. Only released in the last couple of weeks is our fire scar report, which relates on a 1K basis for your lots on plan, the number of times that fire scars are detected, years since it's been detected, and a time sequence of what the situation was in terms of cool and warm and mid-season fires. So we'll be covering those, and we'll also be hoping to run small videos and have them on the Long Paddock website to better understand those. Okay, getting towards the end of it here, the climate adaptation page. So we have high resolution climate projections and our CCS, which is essentially silo for the future. And what that data enables people to do is to do climate change analyses without having to downscale and manipulate data themselves. It's high quality, state-of-the-art data ready to use in models. And as an example of that, in the up-and-coming election this weekend, taken from The Guardian last week here, where they did some modelling was done for the electorate of Wentworth, remarking that it would be hotter and drier by 2050. And the modelling, which will be used in a social media campaign, is done by the Australian National University using the data from the Queensland DES Long Paddock project, which is used to predict climate change impacts in regions and cities. So that's how the data gets used sometimes. Okay, so the climate change risk management matrix, it involves doing analyses for your enterprise, for your local government area, or your business, using a workbook or an electronic workbook to work out the impacts, adaptation, and vulnerability of your enterprise or area. So some very good tools there to assist you assessing the risk of climate change. Climate change in Queensland, we have a dashboard here, that a mapping tool that gives you the temperature, evaporation, and rainfall for Queensland, but also across the different regions. it will give you data for 2030, 2050, 2070, and tabulate that under lower and higher emissions. Hopefully before the end of the year, we'll be replacing it with this newer dashboard, which is much more interactive, and you can click on the map or drop down menus here for annual or local, or your different local government areas for different variables, and 2030, 2050, 2070, and 2090. And you'll see the different distributions and the changes for those regions appear here, but also mean climate, heat waves, extreme temperature and precipitation, drought and flood indices. So a whole lot more, and very much interactive. Now, our last tab is our very much regarded rainfall posters page. We have upgraded our rainfall poster page recently, and that involves now some of the similar text here, where you could click on the link here to get a PDF of the original rainfall poster map. But down below here, we've made advances, and we have a series of posters now, and you can download the original rainfall poster, the wet and dry period poster, the pasture growth poster, or the variable rainfall poster with cyclone tracks. Now, all those posters can be upgraded by year after year by clicking onto this link here, and you can download this document, which will give you the patches to upgrade the poster. So you don't need new posters, you just need to update it from this link here that we'll add in after say May of every year, after the April to March year has finished and all the data has come in. Our latest attribution to the site is the rainfall poster map app, which allows you to basically look at the rainfall and the pasture growth annually and in the wet and dry periods. And I'd invite you to go and look at that, because it's a very handy way of looking at the periods and looking at the annual periods that actually contribute to those in rainfall and pasture growth. And along the sidebar, you will see the text that appears on the wet and dry period poster. So a very dinky sort of a app there, and I'd invite you to go and have a look at it. So our wrap up, the Long Paddock offers a diverse range of climate and pasture information for grazing land management, past, present and future, and we provide it all free. Next in Getting the Inside Edge webinar series is on our rainfall posters that we just covered there in more detail. Our rainfall and pasture growth, comparing current seasons with the past, which will be on the 25th of October, a Thursday, followed by two FORAGE webinars to assist with grazing land management decisions. Part 1 will be the currently available information on Thursday, the 15th of November. Part 2 will be new and soon to be released information on Thursday, the 29th of November. So thanks very much for joining us. Any questions or suggestions, please email the Long Paddock team at longpaddock at qld.gov.au. Thanks very much for joining us.